Angels, what is going on? The Champ Strider here, and today it's all about the one-handed weapons, specifically which ones are the best. And this is one of the hardest videos I've ever made because there are just a bunch of one-handers that they're just so good, right? I've been wanting to make this video for a few weeks. It was just really difficult to make a decision on the order of the weapons because the top few, they just absolutely slap. So we're going to do things like my video on the best two-handers, which I'll have pop up now if you haven't seen it before, but there's some subjectivity to these lists because of like play style, and then different players will sometimes put more value into certain weapon attributes than others. So I enlisted two fellow content creators and friends to give you their top 5 lists also, so that you guys can see a few different perspectives from fellow savages, and then I'll give my final list. Alright, so let's start with possibly the sweatiest man in Chivalry, Soder Dave. Dave is actually a Chivalry 2 dueling coach, and he's made some extremely in-depth guides on more niche topics like utilizing jabs. You might have seen him in a few of my recent videos stomping at lobbies with me. So Dave has a very competitive focused perspective, and he ranks starting at 5 the Warhammer, the Falcion, the Axe, the one-handed spear, and in the top spot, the sword. Next up, we have fellow Team Objective pub stomper Disasterosaurus making her second appearance on the channel, and we love Disaster. In a game about chopping people's heads off with swords, she somehow maintains the most positive attitude you'll ever see. But you can't confuse the kindness for weakness, as she's an absolute savage of a player, and she actually uses one-handed weapons quite a bit. So at 5, she has the Axe, followed by the one-handed sword, the Falcion, the Warhammer, and the top spot, the one-handed mace. Alright, now let's get into my list. I had a different order than these guys, but you're going to see some of the same weapons kind of pop up. In the 5th spot, we have the Rapier, and this is more of a specialty weapon to me because it can be a bit short and has hit stop. But in the hands of a player who really picks and chooses their engagements well, my god almighty, do those stabs just absolutely devastate people. You're mostly playing around stabs and overheads here, as the slashes, they're like mosquito bites, but the heavy stabs, they just do a ton of damage for how fast this weapon is. And the thing with Rapier is you see this more when you're fighting them, but man, is it quick, and the animations, they're super difficult to read. Players seem to just repeatedly fall for feints against the Rapier, since you have to be so fast if you want to counter those excelled strikes that players often bite really hard on a fake. 4th, we have the Warhammer, and it kills me to put this weapon at 4. I almost feel like I'm doing it a disservice since it hits so damn hard. A one-handed weapon that can two-shot knights like the Warhammer, it just melts players. And while the Warhammer, it's not great at 1vx fights since it's blunt, I've always found it kind of excels at kind of like picking the low-hanging fruit and flanking around those group fights, selecting your targets carefully. I've turned so many team fights with this thing, just like one-shotting 5 knights in a row in the back. It absolutely slaps. In the 3 spot, we have the one-handed sword. Again, this is just so fluid to fight with. It feels a lot like you're using a shorter longsword. The stabs and overheads do a surprising amount of damage. And again, this weapon kind of combines the fast and hard to read attributes like the Rapier, while still being able to hit through multiple targets. The attacks, they just chain together so fluidly that players will panic and fall for feints very often against the arming sword. In the 2 spot, we have the Falcion, and this weapon, it feels so good to fight with. It has a very deceiving range to fight against, meaning you think you're safe, and then the Falcion smacks you in the head. The damage profile, it's interesting in that it favors slashes and overheads, making it an ideal group fighting weapon. It might feel a tad slower than some of the other one-handed weapons, but it's like a mini messer, and it's definitely one of my go-tos for team objective. And in the top spot, I can actually thank the General Velvet Hammer for putting me onto this weapon, and that's the one-handed axe. I absolutely love this weapon for a few reasons. I will say it is short, but the speed and damage is really nice, and on top of that, the chop or cleave damage makes it not only excel in group fight situations, but it absolutely melts all enemies. The bonus damage on knights and footman it's just like some extra sauce on your ice cream. I also find this weapon seems to be less commonly used, so you already know that means enemies, they can't read the attacks and will fall for the same feints over and over and over again. Alright, Angels, I hope this list helps in choosing your one-handed weapons on the battlefield. And it seems like people enjoy when I bring other creators on the channel, so let me know if you have any other ideas for collabs down below. That's it for me. Make sure to subscribe. Champ out.